Welcome back, everybody. You got Will and I-Man here from the Block Runner, Metazone, Roby, and Mscribe, and today we got some DMT updates, some juicy stuff, I-Man.
Oh yeah, I'm all about that juice, dude. So some DMT happenings.
Yeah,
I mean, this couple of weeks of content has been mostly centered around the Royals launch, right? Because
yeah,
we've had our we've had our moments of difficulty and moments of absolute euphoria, right?
that's
It's
right.
been a pretty up and down roller coaster ride to deploying the first privilege authority collection. So I guess here we are at the tail end of that. A success story, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely a success. Yeah,
Yeah.
so we went through the Royals Mint. It had 4 different phases, and King, he still has to inscribe the last 400 or so for the team allocation. So after that's done, then the reveal should be happening. And actually, we have a timeline for the reveal. It was supposed to be on this past Monday, but there's a couple of like delays that occurred, and it's going to be next week. And so King kind of does an explanation here. But nonetheless, right, 1 week is nothing in crypto. It's the reveal is going to be happening, and as soon as it gets uploaded to Bitcoin, all the people who've minted the Royals will be able to see their art instantly on Mscribe, and then pretty soon this will be on Magic Eden as well. So a lot of stuff
Yeah.
happening. There's a couple of
Yeah.
things that we need to clean up on our platform that so that we can enable anyone to mint and or actually deploy their own privilege authorization tokens and create their own phases and all that stuff all on their own. So exciting
Yeah.
stuff happening.
Yeah. So I feel you guys, if some of you guys are bummed out by not getting your art as soon as you wanted, but I mean, yeah, like you said, well, this is crypto.
Yeah,
This is the way it is, right? But nonetheless, it's going to, yeah, 1 week in the time frame of like how long this collection is going to last, potentially infinitely into the future.
that's right. Yeah, yeah.
Like
This
one,
DMT
yeah,
stuff lives forever, right? As the pattern occurs again on Bitcoin, there's going to be more royals, more stuff. This is unlike anything anyone has seen in crypto altogether. That's the whole point of DMT. So
yeah. So
when
clarify just that little aspect because I've been listening to a lot of Twitter spaces and a lot of people don't understand like the non-arbitrary route to all of this.
Okay. So the
Okay.
reason why we call these like non-arbitrary tokens is because they're pointing to a piece of data, a pattern within Bitcoin's blockchain. That
Yeah.
pattern comes from right now the 11th field of Bitcoin, which is the bits field. And so the bits field has some data into it. And so if you find a pattern like 123 or a hexadecimal, A0, like whatever pattern that you find, you inscribe that as an element, as officially recognizing a pattern on Bitcoin. And then
Yeah.
once that element exists, other people, anyone across the universe can point to that element and deploy a ticker that points to that element, thereby defining a non-arbitrary supply. And that supply
Correct.
is based on the occurrence of that pattern within Bitcoin. And
Yeah. Perfect.
so that means that.
Perfect.
So what does that mean? So I said a bunch of words, I man. Ultimately, what does that mean? First of all,
Yep.
your
Yep.
supply is not arbitrary. And in the case of King, it was 10,080 or the Royals, and that is how many times their pattern exists on Bitcoin. So what does it mean into the future? If that pattern occurs again on Bitcoin, that means there's going to be more Royals. I was like, but that's inflationary, right? That's a problem. So, well, you know what a problem is that in today's crypto, like 10K mints only have a few thousand holders. That's a problem, right? You can't really create anything with like a few thousand holders. So with DMT, you can expand the supply in a non-arbitrary way where it's not controlled by the deployer or the creator. It is controlled by Bitcoin and its own existence. So that's what's cool about it. So expansionary tokens are actually very good and healthy for a growing ecosystem as what you would want for a community. Does that explain it, I-Man?
It does. I think it does. And I think it addresses a lot of like core issues that like the NFT ecosystem is displaying today, right? With like this, yeah, this idea of arbitrary expansion, anytime like a 10K collection, the foundational entity, whatever that is able to make those decisions typically do not consult with their community whenever they decide to activate
That's
that
right.
type of expansionary action.
Yeah.
As a result, it does have like quite a disruptive ripple effect within like the market dynamics of that singular asset basically.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like fear and a lot of there really is no clear solution to that, right? So NATs pose something much more, I guess, like cohesively understood, where you're participating in these ecosystems from the ground initiation point with that understanding already in hand, right? Like you understand this is a collection that has the potential to expand, but not at the discretion of like some foundational actor.
Yeah.
Like it is completely dependent on Bitcoin's data propagation, right? Which is non-arbitrary. It happens when it happens, it happens. And we all agree and understand that, and we're all aligned with that. Therefore, it's not going to have those disruptive, you know, effects from a market dynamics perspective.
Mm-hmm.
That's the theoretical assumption, right? That's like all this is still in like an experimental stage. So we don't 100% know if that's true or not,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but it's probably the best attempt at trying to actually build real non-fungible ecosystems that have indefinite sustainability into the future. Right?
Yes, dude, that's what I like about DMT is that there is an indefinite sustainability potential here. And so
Yeah.
that's like the best part of this because if you're a creator and you do a 10K project and you mint out and you make a bunch of money and then like that's it, like what are you going to do as a creator when you know that if you try to add to your creation, it quote unquote dilutes your supply? What do you do as a creator? You spin up a new Twitter account, right? And then you just launch the project anyways, and then now you're managing two different things when you're supposed to be managing one thing, right? So it's like a pain in the ass for everybody involved. The people who are holding these collectibles to the people who are creating these collectibles. Everything's just a mess. And so DMT at least makes an attempt to kind of make everything kind of non-arbitrary. It's not up to anybody, right? It is up to Bitcoin, and that's the cool part.
All right. So for those of you guys still confused, I mean, join the Discord. We're happy to continue the conversation forward.
Yeah, we have at least like 50 of these like DMT videos as well. So, but yeah, let's move on. So we have also the crowns, right? So these crown holders, these minters, helped us test this new like authority mint on Mscribe, where we had like an actual PvP occur, right? It was entertaining. A lot of people loved it, right? And so they inscribed these assets in the test network of Track, right? Because Track allowed us to test this whole privilege auth thing. We're the first ones to use it. The Royals was the first one to be live on the actual live network, and but now we got to transition the testers to the live net, and so that's what we're gonna do, right? So if you interacted with Mscribe and you hold one of these test mints, and so we're gonna show like all the details, but eventually you'll be whitelisted onto the M Crown, which is the live test, the live token, right, and the live network, and you'll have an ability to mint this thing, and then so who knows how we're going to use it? We're not going to be promising anything because it makes no sense to promise anything because who knows the future. But a lot of people are going to be leveraging the crown holders, right? A lot of creators are going to want to say, hey, if you hold a crown, you can mint this asset that we're creating, right? And so potentially there's going to be a lot of people using that. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, at minimum, we can promise is it's a 3D asset, so it's going to be a pretty cool metaverse flex at some point.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, 100%.
That's a guarantee. Because if you ever played MMORPGs in the past, like I have, if you were like involved in any of the like beta stages or alpha stages, you were usually rewarded some sort of token like this, like a bandana or something with like the game logo on it.
Yeah.
And you were able to kind of like, you know, put that on at any time when you're in like a highly dense populated area, and people would know. It's like this is one of the alpha guys.
Yeah, that's
It's one of
right.
the early testers,
Yeah.
So
This is as
that
OG as it gets for this
yeah,
technology.
correct. Yeah.
But look at this eye, man. I don't know. I don't think this was intentional, but the design of the crown looks very similar to the design of one of the crowns for the Royals.
Yeah. I don't think that was intentional, but
Because
shout out
literally, yeah, shout
big
out
guy.
Pepe God. Yeah, we told Pepe God, hey, help us do a crown, dude. And it was like, cool,
Yeah.
I got you. And so this is his output. And it just so happened to be like very similar.
Yeah, it's pretty swell. It's pretty swell.
Yeah. All
So
right.
yeah, stay attentive to the Discord for more details on that.
Yeah. So here's an interesting one, Natomon. So the unveiling of our Gitbook as incoming partnerships will kick off immediately afterwards. Follow, retweet. We got DMT Cats, the Royals, Frogs, Punks, and Mscribe.
Yeah.
So that's cool, right? So Natomon, I think, is like a card game, and it's completely non-arbitrary. So,
Yeah,
um,
we've talked about them in the past, I think. So, they're coming out pretty strong, building
yeah,
I think a lot of hype and anticipation for this. So this is an upcoming uh you know another PvP mint experience in the future, right?
yes, that's correct. Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. I think this is going to be the first game on DMT. So yeah, I'm interested to
Yeah.
see how like that's going to work. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do like a deep dive, probably like whole video dedicated to it because it is pretty complex. If you can imagine, like just understanding the rarity mechanisms for
Yeah,
like these PFP collections is kind of complex and hard to understand.
yeah,
Now, I've tried to think of that like applying that to game and stat renderings and just all kinds of stuff,
yeah,
right? Different species and stuff like that within a game. It can get pretty wild, but that's why it's important for these projects to exist, right? Because it's pushing the ball forward for a whole new market vertical to emerge, right?
that's right.
Non-arbitrary game space, right? Like that's who the fuck knows how far that can go, you know?
Yeah, non-arbitrary game design. That's cool. Right?
It's cool.
It's like remember the days you were grinding for like particular gear in World of Warcraft, and only one person can get like this particular set, and like that was it, and it was like it's just completely arbitrary, right? Now,
Yeah.
what if that set of gear happened non-arbitrarily, and like all of a sudden that pattern occurs again on Bitcoin, for in this example, all of a sudden now all the players can go out there and try to grind for that asset because it non-arbitrarily exists again, right? That's cool.
Yeah, 1,000%. Yeah, it's gonna be like I could foresee like weapon enchantments and stuff like enhancements or whatever,
Yeah,
different recipes that they react dynamically to like patterns in Bitcoin, right? Imagine that. It's like, oh, this sword is usable in this like dungeon experience. Like if these patterns are actually being propagated for the next 2,000 blocks, right? The difficulty adjustment period. So for 2 weeks,
yeah,
I could fight this dragon. Yeah, like
yeah.
that's pretty fucking cool, right?
That's right. That's right.
Implement all this non-arbitrary logic into your game experience. Like it's as deeply connected to Bitcoin as we can get, right?
Yeah,
It's pretty cool.
yeah. So moving on, we got animated wizards. So get ready for the Natchick. You see what I did there? I
You
mean,
didn't do it.
they did. Yeah.
I know you like to take credit for all the Nat puns.
Yeah. But
Which
we're
one?
thrilled to
Yeah,
announce our collab partner, Mscribe. So this is cool.
this is cool. Is there a video? Oh, there it is. This is the big
Yeah.
unveil, dude. So,
Let me turn this down. This is super loud.
okay. Well, it's pretty self-explanatory.
Our first collab, Mscribe.
Yeah, all this means is that it's going to be another PvP deployment, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, so
Okay.
this is cool. So I think I've seen some of the art. It basically looks like this character here, right? The animated wizards here.
Yeah, except animated. I'm not sure. I don't think Twitter profiles are animated, right?
Correct. Yeah, these are animated. That's right. That's why they're called natomated.
That's right, dude. You're learning.
Yeah.
You're learning.
Yeah, so I think if you inscribed the nanomated cats, you get whitelist access here. And maybe I'm pretty sure the crowns will be whitelisted as well. So
Yeah, I think a lot of these like feature drops are going to want to do that for I think obvious reasons. But again, no promises can be made. It's just like an assumption that they will do stuff like this, right?
yeah,
Who
absolutely.
wouldn't want to do like, you know, bring in the core DMT community, I guess, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So
Mhm.
speaking of something interesting, so we talk about PFP projects, but PFPs are not the only art projects out there. The type of art projects, there's like gen art here. And so Nat Snow is doing a DMT of unique snowflakes, dude.
Which makes sense because like in real life, in physical reality, these are absolutely unique, right?
Yeah. Yeah, which I find interesting. I mean, it wouldn't make sense for them to be like copies of each other because then simulation theory is for sure true. But yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that real life flakes are unique, and now we have them digitally.
Yeah. So I wonder, yeah, who knows what's going to be like. So this is like another market vertical of some kind. So we've seen diamonds already.
Yeah, that's true.
At diamonds, where the uniqueness is all again like pinned to non-arbitrary parameters and stuff. So
Yeah.
it is a nice little parallel of bringing, like we talked about in the last podcast, bringing like as much of like man, like a representation of physics force, I guess. I don't know, some sort of external force that makes these materializations, like patterns within matter,
Mm-hmm.
actually occur,
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
in a natural process. These aren't like synthetically made, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I guess you can now. You can make synthetic diamonds,
Yeah, which are
but
way
they're not
better. They're way better in
right.
terms of quality, dude. All right, let's keep it going here.
Maybe quality, but not in value.
That's true. That's true. Natural diamonds tend to be a lot more valuable. Crazy humans out there, crazy markets, I should say. All right, let's take a look at Limitless Emporium, one of the bigger bitmap communities here. We're announcing our plans to release a free UNac collection for the culture, low supply, bitmap design traits included. Holding a bitmap gives you a first come first serve whitelist. This will push the entire ecosystem forward by familiarizing more people with bitmap and non-arbitrary assets. And we want to release a collection in May, but excellence takes time. We want the UNac
Mm-hmm.
collection to be flawless, therefore we'll postpone the claim slightly, but we'll ensure it's released next month. Yeah,
Cool.
so this is cool. So now we're starting to merge the bitmap community, bitmap emporium, DMT, and pretty soon there's going to be more tools that will allow people to inscribe children assets from bitmaps, from like project tokens, DMT deployments, and all that stuff. So all that is going to be part of like this growing non-arbitrary ecosystem.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's actually really important for people to understand is, these two protocols are directly in support of one another,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man, dude, non-arbitrary is a way. It's the only way to go. All right, let's talk about Astral Architect. So today, digital matter theory and ordinals expand to encompass time, space, and beyond. I'm ecstatic to introduce to you digital dimensions theory. So
Hmm.
this is one we were talking about earlier, where they have like basically like non-arbitrary forces potential here, and
Hmm.
we were talking in a podcast where it makes sense to start introducing these forces to allow for like for industries to form, right? So it's sort of like it's similar to like discovering oil in the ground, and you have to process that oil to make products out of it. You can't just like
Yeah.
make a tire from oil, right? That's not how it works, right? You need to create a process for that. So we need processes, which are forces in the digital realm, to enable that. So this could be the start of that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's one of the missing components to like the overall grand unified equation to like how do you solve like metaverse value, metaverse sustainability, right? I think what we introduced with DMT is like one of the components of that, right? We have like root non-arbitrary value as like a starting point, but to
Yeah.
actually like propagate that down like some sort of mechanistic process to where now you the end result of capturing that like that low value state, then putting it through the gauntlet of whatever other like
Yeah.
non-arbitrary forces that could be implemented down the line. Yeah, basically like now you the end product is like as valuable as something like a diamond or a precious metal,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
It doesn't just like manifest out of thin air, right? It goes through a rigorous
Yeah. Exactly.
uh process, right?
Yeah.
To have its like alluring properties. So
That's right.
as part of the thesis, we're assuming these things are going to also be part of the metaverse, like the actual true, um, metaverse that's going to actually sustain itself and be part of like the next digital existence layer, right?
Yeah.
And mirror like physical reality properties as much as possible. So good luck with that, guys. If you guys are tinkering, experimenting in that direction, I mean, we definitely want to support as much of this stuff that emerges as possible, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so another tinker here, inspired by Casey Runnermore, Satoshi's encoding. We encoded the Bitcoin blocks with Cartesian coordinates, opening up a new expression of the Bitcoin metaverse we call the metaverse location theory, MLTs, dude. So people are thinking out there, dude.
Exactly. That's a good thing, right?
Yeah, hell yeah, dude. Thinkers are winners in my eyes. But yeah,
Right.
so here's an example of the Cartesian coordinates that they were talking about, Navigator Labs. And so this is cool. So now we have like a method to place objects within the metaverse. And so I think they got one going here. But yeah, so a lot of details involved into this. Seems interesting. And spatial coordinates is actually very important for the metaverse. So now there's like a method to the madness here. So I like that. And then finally, we got Lambda. Friendly reminder, by the way, iMan, DMT exists on Lambda. So easily deploy, mint, and transfer DMT-based Lambda tokens and NFTs. Check out the contract for yourself on GitHub. All right, dude.
All right.
So finally.
Yeah, we kind of got a peek of that during their hackathon.
Yeah.
Or one of their project entrants was, tinkering around with DMT, which was cool to see, right? We're assuming at some point like DMT is going to be integral part of like any token genesis protocol, right? As it should.
Yeah.
Because it provides like, developers, creators, that alternate route, right? You want to create an arbitrary asset, you can create non-arbitrary one as well. You just, leverage whatever framework that needs to exist for that to manifest.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And the fact that DMTs is going to different like smart contract platforms and all that, like that's good, right? Because we want to see what people can create, and we want to see this like proliferate like the throughout like the crypto community. So the more the merrier. Yeah. And I'd be interested to see if anyone's leveraging these smart contracts based on DMT. And if you are, definitely let us know so we can take a look at what you got going on. But that's it for us. We talked about DMT updates, the Royals Mint. We got the art being showcased in about a week, next week at some point. And yeah, there's going to be a ton more mints happening on Mscribe, so stay tuned to that. And then also, if you are a crown holder, be on the lookout for like the claiming of like your quote unquote real crown in the live network. So, but yeah. If you guys find anything out there, let us know. I appreciate you guys for watching, and we will catch you in the next video.
Peace.